Let's talk some chess. In the first video in this series, we talked about the first game in between Jan Nepomniachtchi and Vidit Gujrathi. This is in the match before the quarterfinals. Whoever wins this goes to the final 8. I explained that all in the intro to the last video. Vidit won the first game with the black pieces, so now Jan must win the second game. No draw. He can't draw. He has to win the second game to even push it to the next tiebreak, which I think is a blitz game. So Jan has to win. He's playing with black pieces, has to play very aggressive. Each player has 10 minutes on the clock, so not a ton of time at all. So you get some chaotic, exciting chess. That's one way to put it. Sloppy could be another way, but I prefer to think of it as chaotic and exciting. In any case, Vidit opens up with d4. We have f5 by Jan, bishop to g5 immediately by Vidit, eyeing this e7 square, and now h6 by Jan. Bishop retreats to h4, and now g5. And it looks like after Vidit puts the bishop on g3, it looks like f4 traps the bishop, and now Jan will be up a piece. This doesn't work though, because if you play f4, then Vidit can just play e3, attacking this pawn, ignoring the attack on the bishop. But if pawn takes bishop, then queen to h5 is actually checkmate. Looks like the 3-move checkmate, where the queen is checking the king, and the king, oh my goodness, the queen is checking the king, and the king has nowhere to go, and none of these pieces can block. So not a real trapping of the bishop here. Instead, Vidit just plays knight to f6, and now you are actually threatening to trap the bishop, because this whole thing wouldn't work in this case, because the h5, I keep saying d5 instead of h5. The h5 square is protected by the knight, so the queen can't go there with check. So instead, now Vidit just plays e3, preventing this f4 idea, because the pawn would just capture, and now just d6 by Jan. Knight to c3, c6, and now h4, trying to break up this really impressive pawn structure that Jan has built. Here we just have rook to g8, getting off of the potential trade on the h-file. In this game, we'll see many times where Jan doesn't want to trade, which makes sense. He wants to keep pieces on the board, go for winning chances, not play to a sort of ground down draw, because he needs to win this game. So we have h takes on g5, pawn takes on g5, and now bishop to c4, developing with a tempo, attacking the rook on g8. So Jan just shuts it down with d5, blocking off the bishop from the rook. Bishop goes back to d3. And now queen to b6 by Jan, attacking this undefended pawn on b2, threatening to get in behind the position. But here Vidit just ignores that and plays a3, and Jan decides to develop a piece instead of trying to get materialistic and taking this pawn, and plays bishop to e6, which again makes sense. He needs to develop an attack instead of sort of gobbling up pawns. So knight g to e2, knight b to d7, both players getting their sort of pieces out, and now b4 by Vidit, eliminating the potential of the queen taking on b2 and sort of cutting off the viable squares for the queen to actually reside on. Instead, bishop to g7, fianchettoed bishop here for Jan, and this is a pretty interesting position. I mean, two very, very elite players, and it's move 13 and no one's castled, and there's a lot going on in the center of the game, so we'll try to do our best to sort of keep track of kind of what's happening. Here we have f3 by Vidit, king to f7 here by Jan. I wasn't really sure about this move. I watched Agamator's review of this game. Basically, Agamator says how the queen needs an escape square. There's the bishop is slicing this way, taking away the c7 square. The knight is taking away b5, as is the bishop, and the bishop is taking away a6. The pawn's taking away these two squares. So if the queen is attacked with knight to a4, it has nowhere to go. So you need to give the queen a safe space to run to on d8. So kudos to Agamator for teaching me that. So we have king to f7 instead. Not a great square for the king, of course, but Jan just has to go all out here. Knight to a4 now, attacking the queen, and the queen retreats to the recently vacated d8 square. c3, adding protection in the center. b6, queen to c2, rook to h8, offering up a trade, and just rook to f1, not wanting to potentially get the queen on the open h file and allow Jan maybe some counter ideas here. So instead, king to f1. A5 by Jan, trying to break it open on the queen side. Both players playing on both sides of the board. They look like they're two engines playing against each other, just attacking on both sides. And b5 by Vidit, trying to sort of shut things down. C takes on b5, bishop takes on b5, and now knight to h5, attacking this bishop on g3. Vidit doesn't want to trade the bishop. He brings it to h2, and now bishop to f6 by Jan. Rook to b2, getting behind this bishop, potentially eyeing this b6 pawn after the bishop moves, and now rook to a7, a nice rook lift. Yeah, just improving the position of the rook. c4 now, attacking this d5 pawn. We have knight to g7, c takes on d5, bishop takes on d5, and now bishop to g3, because you have opened up a discovered attack from the rook to the bishop, so you get out of harm's way with bishop to g3. e6 here, a knight to c3, and this comes with an attack on the light squared bishop on d5. This is a very good bishop controlling this long diagonal, so Jan does not want to trade this bishop. He retreats it all the way back to a8. There was another move here. Instead of e6, I'm sorry. Instead of bishop to a8, another move is f4, attacking Vidit's bishop on g3. After the bishop is retreated, then you can play rook to c7, pinning the knight to the queen. We'll see similar lines kind of as we continue in this game, but that's slightly preferred by the engine, but still not like it's a winning position or anything. So bishop retreats to a8. We have bishop to c4, now pinning this e6 pawn to the king. f4 now, the move we kind of talked about, attacking this bishop to f2 as we saw, and now rook to h2, getting the rook very active on the second rank for Jan, attacking this undefended g2 pawn. So Vidit doesn't defend the pawn, but attacks the rook on he does defend the pawn with a discovered defense from the queen, and the bishop is now attacking the rook on h2. And here Jan decides to go for it. Well, not quite yet. He brings the rook to c7 and attacks this bishop on c4. And here, instead of, Vidit could go up the exchange and take the rook, and then Jan takes bishop. But instead, Vidit just plays it very safe, and plays, first he plays this wonderful knight to b5 move. This attacks the rook, and it defends the queen by way of a discovered defense, because now there's no knight blocking the queen from defending the bishop. So instead here, now Jan now has to defend his rook on h2. He plays rook to h1, attacking the bishop, but now knight takes on c7. And this was the whole idea. Jan, I'm sure, would have preferred this bishop takes and now rook takes, and now you're sort of pinning the knight and attacking this knight, and you have a little bit better of a counter going, but instead Vidit just shuts it down with this knight to b5 move. So rook to h1, both of your rooks are hanging to a minor piece, so you're going to have to give up one, so he keeps the rook on the first rank, and now knight takes on c7, queen takes on c7, and now Vidit is up the exchange, and it's just it's just a case now of withstanding the attack and making sure Jan doesn't win the game, and Vidit will advance. So bishop to f2, offering a rook trade on the first rank. Jan, of course, does not want to trade. He needs to keep his pieces on the board. Rook to h2, rook to c1, doubling up on the c file with the rook and queen to d6, and now a similar move that the engine prefers here, instead of queen to d6, is f takes on e3, attacking this bishop on f2. After the bishop recaptures, then you have this queen to g3 with check, and now you can sort of see these pieces are a bit more threatening. Queen to f2 blocking, queen all the way back to b8, and now knight to c3 and knight to f5, and this is a little bit more, you've opened up a little bit more space against Vidit's king. This king is a little bit less safe, and you can try to continue the attack from here. Again, not a winning position, but one that I figured I'd highlight because the engine does prefer it. So queen to d6 is played, bishop to g1, attacking this rook. This bishop and this rook have just been dancing all game on these 4 or 5 squares, and they continue the dance. Bishop to g1, attacking the rook back to h1, as we keep seeing. E takes on f4, g takes on f4, and now bishop to f2, again offering the rook trade. Again, Jan declines. I swear half the moves in this game are just rook to h1 and rook to h2, and bishop to g1, bishop to f2, bishop back to g1, and now finally Jan gets his rook out of there with rook to h5, retreating the rook, hopefully for good. We have knight to c3, getting the knight closer to the center of the board. Ideas of knight to b5 with an attack on the queen. The rook is attacking b5, but it's defended by the bishop, so that's okay. Knight to f5 here instead by Jan, and now knight to b5, as we sort of talked about. Queen to e7, getting out of the attack, but now bishop to d3, threatening to trade off yet another set of pieces, and now king to g7 by Jan. Yeah, but we'll see the sort of idea behind this. Bishop to f2 now, and now rook to h2. Again, as soon as Jan has the chance, he wants to put his rook on h2, and now that the bishop's gone, he can. But now you get queen to c8, by Vidit attacking this bishop here on a8, and all of a sudden Vidit is starting to sort of force Jan's pieces back and get an attack of his own going. So here, rook back to h8, protecting the rook is protected by the king, so that's sort of, you know, part of the idea behind king to g7. Now the rook is protected. Well, I guess it was protected before by the bishop, so I shouldn't even say that. So ignore me. King to h8, attacking the queen and protecting this bishop on a8. The queen retreats, but not very far, to c7, and now the queen is sort of pinning the knight to the other queen. The other queen is defended twice by the bishop and knight, but this will be important, so just sort of keep an eye on that. Bishop to d5 is played by Jan. King to d2, connecting the two rooks, and now, again, rook to h2, the most common move of the game, apparently. Give me one sec, I want to see. Okay, yeah, I know where the game ends now. Bishop to f5, trading off the knight, and now notice that one defender of the queen is gone, so keep an eye on that. And now rook f to e1. This is sort of why the king is off the back rank, because you can bring the rook to e1, and it's defended by both the king and the bishop, but also the other rook, so a nice sort of combination there. Jan clogs it up with bishop to e4. Notice that this is looks like a really weird bishop sacrifice, but if you take with the bishop, I think it does work. Take with the bishop, f takes on e4, knight to d6, and now e3 with check. Bishop takes, pawn takes, rook takes on e3, and now rook takes on g2 with check, and after the king moves to d3, it ended up just being a trade of bishops because of this fork that you have with e3 with check. You're forking the king and the bishop, so you win it back. So it's not quite a real bishop sacrifice, and indeed Vidit doesn't even accept the sacrifice. He just plays knight to d6, getting pieces after Jan's king, and also now attacking this e4 square with his knight. So we have e6 by Jan, unpinning the queen at least from the knight, but now the knight is even more pinned to the king. F takes on e4, rook takes on g2, and now rook to g1. And finally, this annoying rook that I've had to say rook to h2 a million times is going to be traded off because, of course, it's pinned to the king. So here, first we have f3, then we have rook takes on g2, f takes on g2, and now d5 here by... is this the move when the game ended? Yeah. Now we have d5 here by Vidit, attacking the queen, of course, on e6. An intermezzo here by Jan, bishop takes on g5, and now after queen e2, Jan put down his sword and resigned the game and was eliminated from the tournament. So see if you can, like, well... I should have asked which move. Okay, yeah. We didn't have an opportunity to ask which move to talk about. The reason why this d5 move, which is the move I should have asked you about, I apologize. The reason why this is the winning move is because it, of course, attacks the queen. The queen is responsible right now for defending this knight, which is attacked by the enemy queen, so the queen has to stay in defense of the knight. Unfortunately, there are no squares remaining where the queen can defend the knight. For example, of course, queen to f7, the knight captures the queen. If you get queen to e8, again, the knight captures the queen. So these two squares are covered by the white knight. But what about this queen to e7, you ask? This looks fine. You're not attacked by the knight. See if you can find the move here. I'll give you sort of a follow-up. See if you can find the move here for Vidit that would win the game if Jan had played queen to e7. Well, I'll give you a couple of seconds. Okay, hopefully you can see the royal fork here. It is knight takes on f5, forking the king and the queen, and you lose your queen, and this is the game. So here Jan has no moves. He has to move his queen away, and the knight will fall, and with it, there will be check, and the game will be over. So Jan resigns the game, leaves the tournament. Unfortunate for him. He's obviously had a very strong 2 years getting to the Chess World Championship. It's not to be this year, but congrats to Vidit, who's obviously an amazing, incredibly strong player. Continues on to the quarterfinals. I forget who he will face, but obviously getting very close to that top 3 finish where he will qualify for the candidates tournament. So some amazing games. I hope you enjoyed it. We'll keep covering this World Cup of chess as it gets down to its harrowing final rounds. Thanks for watching. Drop a like, drop subscribe. Let me know of other games you'd like me to review, and we'll see you next time.